Next, we have Ms. Judith Inc. Would you come down, please? Welcome, Judith.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for the opportunity to speak with you tonight. I've lived in Rensselaer County for about 34 years, except 7 years when I commuted back and forth between New York City and Rensselaer County when I served as the regional administrator for the Environmental Protection Agency, EPA. And I'm here to talk to you tonight about the Norlite hazardous waste incinerator. But first, I want to thank Legislative Chair Mike Stammel for his extraordinary leadership in dealing with the Dunn landfill, which has been a major source of pollution in Rensselaer County and East Greenbush. So thank you for your continued leadership. It really has made a difference having partners in government on this ongoing problem. And I might add that recently Assemblymember McDonald and Senator Neil Breslin submitted a bill in the legislature that would prohibit the siting of new solid waste facilities within a mile of a school. Seems like common sense, but we actually need a law to do that. And it may not deal with the immediate problems at Dunn landfill, but when the permit expires in about 2 years, that requirement would kick in. But I'm mostly here to talk about Norlite, and you might wonder, why am I here to talk about a facility in Cohoes in Albany County? That is a hazardous waste incinerator, and prevailing winds send the emissions directly into Rensselaer County and beyond. I want to talk to you about the burning of toxic firefighter foam. In my judgment, this is one of the most serious environmental and public health threats facing the entire Capital District right now. We don't know exactly how much of this toxic chemical has been emitted from Norlite because they refused to tell the public how much they burned, and they didn't tell local elected officials or the public that they were doing that. We're talking about firefighter foam, and it's only used when there's high temperature fires, and there's no safe way to burn it. So think about this for a moment. By definition, it's a fire suppressant. So why would you put it in an incinerator? And it's also very slippery and is emitted directly out of the stack. We don't know how much of this PFAS chemical comes out of the stack because there's never been stack tests there, yet burning occurred in 2018 and 2019. This is irresponsible, and this burning should never happen again. So PFAS, that's a group of over about 5,000 chemicals. Don't worry, I'm not going to talk about all 5,000. But the two most commonly used are PFOA. So those of you who represent Hoosick Falls and Petersburg, you're very familiar with PFOA that got into public drinking water supplies and private wells. PFOS is kind of the cousin of PFOA, and that has contaminated water supplies all over the country. These chemicals are a problem when they are inhaled. They pass through the skin and causes dermal exposure. While this is an air pollution threat, it's also a problem when the pollution comes out of the stack, falls on the ground, and it falls or leaches right into groundwater and also surface water reservoirs. These are highly persistent chemicals which stay in your body for many years. These chemicals have been known to cause cancer, liver disease, autoimmune deficiencies, infertility, and their most toxic endpoint is the suppression of the immune system in children. The U.S. military was the largest user of firefighter foam. It's called AFFF. It's also been used by local firefighter operations doing training. It's so toxic that the military stopped using it years ago, and what they did is store it in secure locations. A good answer for you, other than keep it at a secure location until you can find a safe disposal option. And that's, in fact, what the military has been doing for the last decade. And this is fairly common when you have a difficult waste stream. You know, they deal with really complicated waste streams like rocket systems and other contaminants. And so what they typically do is they keep it on site, invest in research and development, and figure out what to do with it. That was happening until just a few years ago. I think the military changed course because they thought the current administration was not as vigorous with environmental protection, and also because they didn't think anyone would find out about this. My former agency, the EPA, put out a technical brief on the incineration of these chemicals and concluded the extent to which PFAS containing waste material in the U.S. is incinerated is not fully documented or understood. So that's the Trump administration EPA saying the health and environmental impacts of burning this foam is not fully documented or understood. In 2017, the Air Force issued a request for proposal looking for, quote, a novel technology that achieves permanent disposal of AFFF. That was a very responsible thing for the Air Force to do. The request for proposal said, the Air Force is ridding itself of a large inventory of AFFF for which no satisfactory disposal method has been identified. The document from the Air Force said the high temperature chemistry of PFOS and PFOA has not been characterized, so there is no precedent to predict products of pyrolysis or combustion, nor temperatures for which they will occur, or the extent of destruction that will be realized. Many likely byproducts will also be environmentally unsatisfactory, for example, volatile perfluoroalkanes, which will be a greenhouse gas or toxic. So what that essentially means is burning is not safe, and the Air Force responsibly looked for an alternative technology. And yet, in 2018 and 2019, the Department of Defense signed 3 contracts to burn more than 1 million gallons of PFOS-based foam, each contract covering a different part of the country. The Department of Defense did no environmental review on the practice of burning this toxic firefighting foam. And that's really too bad, because if they did an environmental review, they would have seen that pollution control devices in incineration facilities like scrubbers, which Norlite is now in the process of installing, do not remove all PFAS chemicals from stack emissions. Incomplete incineration can result in PFOS emissions, which I'm very concerned about, but also other toxic chemicals coming out of the stack, including hydrogen fluoride, which is corrosive, poisonous, and flammable. These chemicals do not easily break down, and they persist in the body forever. So that's why on February 20th, I was proud to announce that a number of environmental organizations led by the Sierra Club and Earth Justice filed a federal lawsuit against the Department of Defense and the incinerator companies for burning this toxic firefighter foam without an environmental review. It's incredible that this large-scale burning has happened with no environmental review. So that lawsuit is filed in federal court, but it's going to take a while to make its way through federal court. Norlite is not currently burning. They burned in 2018 and 2019. They're installing a new scrubber system. They say they will start operating again in the Freedom of Information request filed by the Sierra Club in California. They learned that Norlite's parent company, a company called Tradabee USA, which is a multinational waste company based in Barcelona, Spain, they got one of the contracts from Department of Defense. So the parent company of Norlite is receiving waste from the Marines, Army, and Navy totaling more than 2 million gallons of PFOS stockpiled foam and waste. But we don't know exactly how much has been burned. What we do know is that this is a 5-year contract. This is not something that just happened a couple years ago. This is a 5-year contract. I also learned that the state of New Hampshire and the state of Vermont sent this material to Norlite to be burned, and I suspect other states have done that as well. The states have done a really good thing. They went out to firefighter operations and collected this toxic foam because they were concerned that it could be a water contamination source. But I've got to tell you, no one expected that they would then take this toxic material and burn it at an incinerator. It looks like Norlite may be becoming the regional toxic foam incineration facility for the entire Northeast. It's less than a mile from the Hudson River, less than a mile from the Mohawk River. So here's what has to happen right away. We need to find out exactly how much foam was burned in 2018 and 2019 and where did it come from. I have the manifest records from this Freedom of Information request that document 40 shipments went to Norlite from February till September 2019. Norlite has said to public officials not all of it was burned. Some of it is being stockpiled on site. We don't know how much. The federal contract, which Norlite's parent company responded to, would have the country carved up into different regions. So material coming to Norlite would be from Alabama, Connecticut, Delaware, Florida, Georgia, Illinois, Indiana, Kentucky, Maine, Maryland, Massachusetts, Michigan, Mississippi, New Hampshire, New Jersey, New York, and North Carolina. That is a lot of material, and that's just the foam from Department of Defense. If Norlite has other contracts, like they did with Vermont and New Hampshire, those would be other sources. Thankfully, the state legislature introduced a bill a few days ago that would prohibit the burning of toxic firefighter foam anywhere in New York State. That was introduced by Assemblymember John McDonald, Assembly Members Fahey and Steck, and Senator Neil Breslin. I'm very grateful that they introduced this bill. We need proactive leadership. I'm here to urge you to do a couple things, and you probably have additional ideas on what to do about this, because this burning could start again in the next few months. Support this legislation. It's Assembly Bill 9952. It's Senate Bill 7880. I know the legislature often will pass a resolution supporting legislation, but we need you to do more than that. We need you to call the legislative leadership. So that would be Senator Andrea Stewart-Cousins, Speaker Carl Hastie. Call them, request a meeting with them, and work hard with the sponsors to get this bill through the legislature. And then do the same thing with Governor Cuomo, because we hope he would sign a bill if it got through the legislature, but it's important to weigh in. Second, I know that you've passed a resolution requesting the Department of Environmental Conservation to establish air monitors in Rensselaer County. If the state DEC doesn't do that, the county should do that. And I do want to tell you that even if the burning of the firefighter foam doesn't proceed in Norlight, and I honestly don't know. So, my experience at EPA, I was very familiar with hazardous waste incinerators. They exist just to burn hazardous waste. Norlight is quite different. It's an aggregate company, so they do some shale mining, and then rather than paying for fuel, which they need to do to heat the shale to make it construction aggregate, they import large quantities of liquid hazardous waste, and that's their fuel source. And that's a major income source for them because companies spend a lot of money to get rid of the liquid hazardous waste. So it's also worth taking a look at potential other emissions. Finally, federal representatives have written to Department of Defense with a series of very good questions. I don't think any of those letters have been answered. It wouldn't hurt for this body to also write to the Department of Defense and repeat some of these questions. I've been really encouraged by the bipartisan and almost uniform cooperation on this issue from local officials and the state legislators that represent CAHOs. This is viewed as a CAHOs issue. It certainly affects Albany County. I've spoken not in the forum, but I've spoken directly to some Albany County legislators. But this is a really big issue in Rensselaer County because we are downwind. So you, as elected officials with experience, probably have additional ideas, and I'd be happy to collaborate with you tonight or another time, answer questions, but I just really wanted to put this on your desk as an issue that very much needs attention. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Judith. Other than that, anything for the body? Legislators have anything? Okay. At this time, we'll adjourn. Thank you very much. Oh, wait a minute. You went? Todd?
I'm sorry. Yes, that was a great presentation of a potential hazardous situation that we have just across the river in O's. This is all new to us, and as far as I'm aware of, this is fresh information that we've just been made aware of, about a week ago. I'm not sure how long Sirius has been involved or has knowledge of this. I don't know how long it's been with the FOIA request from the California parent company, but it's disturbing that if anyone has been aware of this sort of incineration of these toxic, chemicals, especially in the firefighting foam, why are we just hearing about it now? This has been going on since 2018 and 2019. It's amazing, remarkable that this hasn't been. We haven't heard of any information in regards to this. So that in itself is a bit disturbing, and absolutely we're concerned, with the incineration of this toxic chemical. It only makes sense to move forward. It only makes sense, to put pressure on our legislature to look into this. It only makes sense to request DEC come up with answers. Apparently they've been aware of this incineration and have allowed it to take place. But yet can't provide any answers as far as the safety or the nature of the exhaust, from incineration of this product. So, yes, we're absolutely concerned about it. Yes, we're all over this. Yes, we will continue to look for answers and hope for some sort of a solution to the problem.
Thank you, Legislator Tesman. Anyone out on a legislative privilege? Yes?
Yeah, that's the only question I have, and like I said, I'm brand new to this situation, but I'm concerned. When did our own DEC know about this? How long have they known it? Without announcing that to the rest of the state?
I'm not certain that the senior leadership at DEC knew. However, when we made this public, when we filed the federal lawsuit, a spokesperson for the DEC said that DEC had been working with Norlight and the EPA to develop a test burn protocol, so they must have known. But it's in reverse. They burned in 2018 and 2019 without doing any test burning, And I might add that it'll be years before the EPA has a protocol for this complicated kind of test burn.
I mean, if our own DEC knew about it, you know, that would arouse concern.
I think they would have intervened, but I think based on the public statements, someone at DEC knew. And the company insists they're not legally required to tell anyone that they were doing this.
You know, it's not just what we drink or what air we breathe, but, you know, for example, us farmers, I'm a farmer, you know, we grow crops on a couple thousand acres of land right here near the reservoir in that whole area. You don't know, you know, our concern is, you know, when you process, when you have cows and you produce milk, cattle have a tendency to absorb, they eat whatever is growing, they have a tendency to send that in with the milk, you know, so you're saying, you know, what is really the big picture? You know, what, is it being taken up by the alfalfa and the clover and you know, the grasses that we grow? We don't know that. I mean, we have no knowledge of that. But, you know, that's a concern there also, you know. What are we putting in our food supply, the food chain? So it is a real concern. I mean, that's we really don't know. You can't burn it. It's got to be coming out of the stack, right? I mean, where else is it going to go if it doesn't burn it properly? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Harrington. Yes.
It just concerns me because DEC has done this before with the Ford Ann giving permits to dump the PCBs in the river. They gave GE permission to dump, or permits to dump, and then GE had to come back and clean it up after the fact because they found out it was dangerous. And isn't there anybody overseeing DEC to stop some of this foolishness that they're doing and putting us in health risks?
Well, it used to be the EPA.
I mean, it's just disturbing that they continue to do things to this manner.
When you say it used to be, what has changed? What has changed?
Well, this EPA is not particularly aggressively enforcing environmental laws. In fact, they repealed or delayed close to 100 federal environmental regulations. So EPA is not playing the role it traditionally has played in terms of oversight.
What is DEC's role? They're not able to enforce any laws?
Sure, they can.
So you're pointing at the EPA, but you could point at yourselves also as DEC then.
I'm not pointing fingers at anyone.
Well, we should point it at somebody, because somebody should have been in charge. I'm sorry. For years in New York State, if you had waste oil, if you had a garage, and you took in waste oil, you logged the waste oil and where it went. You're telling me that we're taking toxic chemicals into factory sites in our state, and nobody's logging them in or logging them out to see where it's gone. I mean, there's got to be trucking transcripts at this company of how much they took in and how much is on ground right now, so you know how much they burned.
Yes.
They're not allowing you to access these records? DEC is not allowed to access these?
I no longer work for the EPA.
No, I know, but you know the way it works.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. There are records.
Yes.
And the Department of Environmental Conservation and the EPA both have the authority to ask more like, how much do you have on site? How much did you burn? Where did it come from? We don't have that information. The DEC could hand that over if they chose to.
Yeah, I feel we should really be pointing at the EPA, the DEC, and even New York State, who sold permits for factories like St. Gobain to burn more than they were allowed to. They actually paid for permits to pollute more in our town, Hoosick, that killed our water. Okay? I think there's three culprits here. The state, the DEC, and the EPA, who we support with our tax dollars to look out for our health and welfare, and they failed miserably on this. And then we're finding out only because other, like the Sierra Club, other organizations actually care. Okay? And I commend you on what you're doing. And I know your heart's in it, and you're doing it because you know there's been a wrong done. And we're going to back you and do all we can to try to clear this junk off. It's bad. Thank you for your time.
But the other thing I'd like to say on that is, it's not just this administration. This has been going on long before this administration.
Oh, yeah.
That's true.
Yeah, Judy, they've been burning chemicals in that kiln for 40 years, as far as I know, coming from the construction industry. So what made them find out now? I mean, I've known 40 years, I've been to the Northern plant, I took a field trip. I've seen how they make lightweight aggregate from that shale, that's how they burn it. So what made them now to after all these years?
Well, they have been burning industrial salt. I think they saw the request for proposal from the military to bring in this AFFF foam, and they, have every right to bring in revenue, and they just decided they were going to bid on this. They didn't tell anyone. Quite honestly, if not for this one Freedom of Information request, and I have to say, I love the Freedom of Information Act, and it took a long time to get the information. If not for that, we never would have known this.
All right. Any other questions? Yes, Mr. Grant?
Sir, and I commend your work, Judith, and the Sierra Club and Environmental Justice Centers. My major concern is if the quote-unquote professionals, if what you're saying is accurate, and the upper echelon of the DEC management did not know what their professional staff was doing, how many other environmental situations are out there that the upper echelon of the DEC doesn't know about, that the professional staff in theory does know about? So this is a concern not really just for Norlight, but any other potential environmental hazards that may be percolating, for want of a better phrase, throughout our area here. So I would just suggest that people who are interested in this take a look at the issue. Also take a look at the role of DEC management vis-a-vis their lower level or professional staff in DEC. This is a tremendous lack of communication that is potentially giving us hazardous materials in our communities that could affect us for generations. So I think there's got to be a really close look at how the DEC manages these types of situations.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes.
Yeah, Kenny is right on the effects from PFOA, and as being a farmer in Hoosick, I was worried that my cows were going to be contaminated in my land, but it wasn't, so we were safe on that part. But there is, in New Mexico, there's been a large dairy farm, been completely shut down. Cows couldn't be sold, couldn't be stopped shipping milk. They had to just euthanize everything. There's one in Maine now that's had that same problem, and this was a smaller,